going to be.
Hello, everybody. I caught him in mid-sentence. He didn't know I was starting. But hey, we're back.
Welcome.
We never did do our season finale recap finale. Life happens.
Been a bit occupied.
Yeah, life happens. Yeah. But hey, I'm Patty, and this is
Al.
And we are the Professional Lovers. And we are glad to be back just to give you our final views on season 12 of Married at First Sight. If you've been following us, then you know that we talk about marital issues through the lens of the couples on Married at First Sight. And there were no surprises in who stayed married and who didn't. And we're just going to recap some of the main issues that the couples discovered about their process of getting married and staying married.
Yeah. Persevered for those who stayed married.
Right. And just kind of reiterate what it takes to create, nurture, and maintain a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Effort.
Exactly. So let's start with everyone's favorite couple. Well, of course, we can't say it's everyone's favorite couple, but it definitely was our favorite couple and many people, and that's Vincent and Brianna.
Yes. And
one thing that Brianna said was a major adjustment for her was learning how to live in a small space. And actually, that was the basis of our first fight.
True.
Adjusting to being in a space with somebody else, especially if you're like us and an older single
and independent, have your set ways, your routines,
exactly,
your comfort zone,
and used to having your own space.
True, all of it.
And now all of a sudden you have to share it with somebody.
Yeah, and that's the whole situation.
Basically,
all of it was
24. Every day.
Yeah.
Not 24/7 because you do leave and go to work but you're in that space together from here on in. Yeah. And it does take adjustment.
It does.
And when I say the basis of our first fight, so it snowed and Al got his
word that I didn't have to go to work.
He didn't have to go to work. And
so I just knew that I was going to be home alone. I was going to chill. I was going to relax. Have my day.
And me, being the newlywed that I was like, hey, here's a chance for us to spend time together at home. So I'm not going to go into work. I'm going to call out of work, and I'm not going to go into work.
That wasn't the plan.
And he let me know it by his attitude. And we literally spent that whole snow day with him in one part of the apartment in the front and me in the back. The apartment.
And I'll have to confess, it was silly. It was truly silly. But I had geared my mind up, waking up that day, just feeling or knowing that I was just going to be able to just do nothing. And now there is a true existence for a man to have a nothing box where they do absolutely nothing. So when women, whenever you ask a man, what you doing? And he says nothing, and it looks like he's doing nothing, believe him. He's doing nothing, and he's okay with it.
And why couldn't we do nothing together?
Because we wouldn't be doing nothing together.
Sure. If you're sitting there watching TV in your nothingness, I could watch TV in nothingness too. But the point is, he had thought, he had planned to be there alone. And I messed that up. Like I said, as a newlywed, thinking here's an opportunity that we can just chill together in our apartment on a snow day.
And it was silly.
Our fight was we said nothing to each other all day.
Yeah. And I had to apologize and
yes, he did.
Bring it to say,
yes, he did.
We can't deal with this. We can't deal like this.
Yes, he did.
So
anyway, So what we're saying is, everybody a lot of times has to make an adjustment to learning how to live together.
And it's a constant thing. It doesn't just mean, you get past one thing and everything's going to be fine. There is never a point in time where everything's going to be fine until you decide that with whatever adjustments that may come, you have already decided that the outcome is going to be fine because you're going to make it fine and do what you have to do to adjust to one another.
And that's a great segue into the other adjustments that both Brianna and Vincent had to make, and that is about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Brianna listened to the fact that, she tends to want everything done her way. And Vincent listened and saw when he looked back at the episodes that he was way overly sensitive.
Yeah.
And his need to look perfect in his wife's eyes was unnecessary.
And unrealistic.
Yeah. And so I like the fact that they could both see ways that they needed to change for the other, and that they were both willing to do that for each other.
And ladies, let me just say that there is nothing better for a man to know that in times of imperfection, that he has a soft place to fall.
Right.
That he's not going to be eaten up by whatever he did or did not do that didn't come about the way it was anticipated, or that it, created a situation or whatever the case, because you're both going to get through it. He didn't end somebody's life. Let's hope not. But I'm just saying it's an instance. So don't beat up on him because of something that did not occur,
Unless
he ended somebody's life.
Actually, I was going to say, unless it's an issue that is repeatedly, like, there seems to be, like, no change, you still have to determine, is it an issue worth chewing him up and spitting him out about? Or is it something that you just let go? Because, how significant is it, or how impactful is it to the other person?
Well, and for a female, I would say that if it's a recurring situation, it needs to be addressed. But it can be addressed in a manner that it's not beating him up. It's just acknowledging the fact that evidently this ain't necessarily your forte.
Which leads us into Eric and Virginia.
Okie dokie.
About how you say what you say.
Huge
because
issue.
That was a huge issue for Eric. Everything that he said that was more of a controversial subject, or an issue of conflict, he tended to talk in ultimatums. And when he watched himself back, he realized that a lot of what he said came across as trying to control her, which is what she was feeling anyway.
Right.
And that, he says, was not his intent, which goes to show that, first of all, somebody, I think it was in her family, said, you need to think about the words that you use to each other. And then think about your delivery. And if you can't make your delivery be positive, or a delivery that promotes discussion and not put each other on the defense, then you may not need to talk about it right then.
Yeah. Give yourself time to, massage it to the point where in expressing it, it's not putting someone on the defensive and you're not berating them with whatever it is that's on your mind. It of course, it's going to be an issue that you're affected by, but it doesn't have to come off as if it's that it's combat, that you got to get it in and you got to win this situation.
There you go. That I have to win.
Yeah,
because a lot of times when you're trying to win,
that's what creates issues.
It creates a lot of friction.
It compounds
and
everything.
then it makes it a competition.
Right.
Who's going to one up the other one? Really? And that does not create a healthy relationship.
True.
So it's better than to, and that's why during the first part of our marriage, I think our fights were silent fights because we're not screamers.
Yeah.
We don't curse at each other. We would rather be quiet and not say anything
than be offensive.
Than to be offensive. And even in that, if he asked, did we have so-and-so in the refrigerator? Even if we're having a silent fight, I would say, no, it's not there. Or I don't think so. Or I'm not sure, you have to look. We're still cordial to each other. Yeah. It's just that we're not going to address the issue until we can address it in a way that
it's a discussion,
right? And that's productive. Yeah. And that's how we've always been, and that's just part of our natural personalities. Other people's natural personalities do lend themselves to being volatile, do lend themselves to poor emotional management, do lend themselves to poor communication skills. Yeah. And you may have to take the work to change that.
Work on that.
Yeah. And remember, in discussions, use I statements. Yeah. I feel like this makes me feel like, and not
you did or you make me.
You always.
Yeah.
Because that automatically puts someone on the defensive.
Yeah.
I like the way Eric became very compromising with dealing with the cats. Mm-hmm. And I like the way Virginia became very compromising with moving into his condo because that was the better thing anyway. Clara and Ryan. I think I like them getting remarried.
Yeah.
Because
it showed another level of commitment on his part. Because again, they went through a non-committal commitment of being together and getting through this process, but not, for lack of a better term, consummating, their commitment to one another.
And even though Ryan alluded to being in love with Clara, he didn't actually say it.
Well, he said, yes, he did.
Well, Kevin said it.
And
he said, there you go. He agreed, but he didn't actually say it. No. But we knew that he was anyway. Because his behavior supported that.
Sure.
Yeah. Big compromise there, budgeting. Mm-hmm. Clara said she was not spending as much as she normally did. Mm-hmm. And that's always a big adjustment, is your financial habits.
True. And again, it comes from you being independent. You're doing things accustomed to what you're
you can. Doing. Yeah. I mean, based on, the money that you bring in and or the bills that you have.
Financial mindset that you have.
Right. Financial acumen.
You may think that there is no tomorrow. I got to get this today.
Some people are savers. Some people are spenders. They live in the moment. They don't plan. I mean, so all of those things have to be negotiated when you bring two people together.
Sure.
And it helps if you just happen to kind of be on the same page, mindset, or you see money in a similar way.
Yeah.
Then it's not as hard to negotiate that and compromise. Mm-hmm. But you will have to. No doubt about it. All right, so those were all the couples that stayed together. And now we'll talk briefly about the two that did not. Let's leave everyone's worst couple for the end.
Who like that? No.
So Haley and Jacob.
Okay.
Here he was so bitter. I mean, his whole tenor was just bitterness.
He was hurt.
I mean, he couldn't. There's nothing that either of them could really say to the other that was positive.
Okay, well, no, they made things very general. They didn't tear down each other than the fact that how they felt about how each put forth effort in their attempted relationship.
But it was proven, my theory, that Jacob projected a lot of his issues onto Haley.
True.
As though they were hers.
True.
Which was proven by the fact that all the guys said that in Las Vegas, it was supposed to be a girls' night out. She did not lie about it. Yeah. The guys happened to come in and just sit before they went off on their own. And he just happened to come down at that time to see everybody there but him. And because lying had been part of past relationship hurts and baggage, he projected that onto Haley. Yeah. And that was unfortunate, but he did that a lot.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting that the expert, well, Dr. Pepper in particular, categorized Haley as being very cold.
Yeah. Not giving at all.
No. You know? And being put off by small things, which made Dr. Pepper say, that makes me wonder if anybody would be a good match for her. As in, would she accept anybody? You know, no matter how good of a match they were or were not. I don't know. That certainly remains to be seen, but I found that interesting. Then we come to Chris and Paige, who, not really surprising, I don't think to anybody, actually went to counseling after the series was over to see if there was anything they could salvage. I don't know. And anything that Chris said during the reunion was like, he's very good at knowing what to say when to say it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He finds a way to sabotage that too, you know.
Okay, but the best quote of the reunion shows came from Paige's friend. And I had to write it down because I had to be able to say it verbatim.
Exactly the way it was said.
The best quote was that Chris is the epitome of why Black mental health matters. When that came out of her mouth, I had to scream because, wow.
And even as a guy, I reflected back on the very first encounter at the wedding where Chris dealt with her friends. Mm-hmm. And from what their conversation was, I immediately felt that, especially as Black women can be very transparent.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to wonder what they're thinking.
They gave him a pass. I mean, just from his responses, because, again, his responses were very
concerning.
Yeah.
And the friend said, I was concerned by some of the stuff that he said, but I wanted to give him a chance. As everyone wanted to give him a chance.
And everybody did. Everybody did.
Yeah. And he proved why there was need to be concerned. Yeah. Now, I have to say that during this whole thing with Paige, you know, seeming to waffle, to take him back and let him go, take him back, let him go. You know, one thing that she explained during the reunion show that I appreciate is that in her mind, this was a commitment to God.
Yeah.
When you do marriage vows, you're making a vow not to the people sitting there watching you get married. You're making a vow to God.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, I mean, if you truly consider yourself God-fearing
and a Christian,
then when you do things that have His name in it,
right?
Baptism, and I have my own thing about that one.
And
marriage. Mm-hmm. You know, those are, as far as I'm concerned, two of the only things that really have Him in it, no matter how you may feel about it.
Right.
He's there.
You've made the vow to Him.
Right.
Above making the vow to your spouse.
Right. You've invited Him into this union.
And that's how serious it is. And there's not enough of that commitment to the vow in today's society and marital relationships as there should be if you have gotten married in a church or with a minister, because that's what you have chosen to done is bring God into that vow. Now, that's not to say that you should stay in a relationship that is abusive.
True.
Whether it's verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, physically abusive. No. Okay? Because you are God's child and God expects your spouse to treat you as His child. If a spouse is not doing that, then you need to give some space for the spouse to do what he or she needs to do to get that under control.
What you do is you give that spouse back to God and let them deal with
and
themselves,
and you
so
separate,
that you can have
right?
your sanity.
Exactly, and you separate. That's not to say you necessarily get divorced right away, but if the spouse proves that they're not interested in doing the work to get themselves together, then divorce may be inevitable. But that's like the last resort.
It's true.
And so I do give Paige kudos for being serious
committed
about her commitment to her vows. But then realizing that being in a relationship with Chris was totally unhealthy, and was not supported by his behavior. And again, he showed his butt in the reunion
with
dealing with a minister. Yeah. So,
regardless of what the relationship is, if you can't communicate with anyone in a respectful manner, you got issues.
And telling people to F off and whatever is not respectful, even if you feel that way. If you can't master the English language in a way to communicate your feelings respectfully, don't talk. So,
not that I would have, but I wouldn't have held it against the pastor if he did meet him in the parking lot.
Well,
because in all actuality, I think Chris just got a lot of mouth.
Yeah.
He likes to hear himself.
But there were lessons there, just like there were lessons in every couple's relationship through this season, as there are every season of Married at First Sight. And so with the ending of season 12, we look forward to season 13, which will start, I think, in a couple of months. And we look forward to giving our views and our opinions to you.
And who knows, we might even fill in something with the vacation time that we'll have.
Right. It's not going to be every week, but if you have subscribed to us and got an alert on, you will know when we post something. So until then, we appreciate your support. We appreciate you, those of you who have been regulars, tuning in, giving us feedback, sharing your comments with us, liking us, sharing us with other people. And we look forward to doing it again with you very soon when Married at First Sight season 13 begins. Until then, take care of yourself. Be careful and peace.
Enjoy.